Let's turn it over to Justine. Just like I said, Justine, so excited that you're with us today. Just perfect timing. Thanks, Justine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Welcome, everyone. We're going to be going over the Arts College application. So steps and tips for an art-seeking student. I'm going to be talking about both art school and as well as art programs at colleges. So you'll get a good breadth of range about what to expect for what students want to be submitting. There'll be a pretty heavy emphasis on visual work in this presentation as well, but I will be touching on performance, musical theater, and music as well. So a little bit about myself. Again, my name's Justine Highsmith. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions with Pacific Northwest College of Art at Willamette University. I'm also a member of the National Portfolio Day Association. I'm a part of the Marketing and Collateral Committee for NPDA. Shout out to any other art schools that may be on this call. And then I'm also a working artist. So I have about over 10 years of experience in both education, fine arts, and working with arts nonprofits. So a couple things that I'm hoping we can really unwrap and discuss in this presentation. The first one is my favorite. It's debunking myths around pursuing a career in the arts. I'm sure you all have had many conversations with students or with families about the viability of an arts education, and hopefully we will seal the deal on this one, and you'll see that it's a really great fit for many students. I'm also going to share tips on advising students on the path towards art school and art applications, including what those requirements can look like. I'll also be giving some practical guidance for supporting your students' artistic growth. So a quick fast facts about us and where we're located. So we are PNCA, Pacific Northwest College of Art. We are a part of Willamette University. So we are now the 5th independent college, a part of Willamette University. But PNCA is actually one of the oldest art schools on the West Coast. We are an ACAD art school. We're a nonprofit. We are located in Portland, Oregon, close to downtown in the Northwest Pearl Arts District. It's a historic arts district. We have about 410 undergraduate students, a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio. 47% of our students identify as students of color. 37% are transfer students to PNCA, and then 100% of our students receive merit scholarship. We have 10 majors and 10 minors that students can choose from. Some of our most popular majors are definitely what we call the design arts, so animated arts, illustration, graphic design. Students can also choose from one of our list of 10 minors. This will show up on their graduating degree as well, which is really nice for students to take extra electives and put that into an area of emphasis. Now, a lot of art schools have something called a first-year experience. We have foundation year at PNCA. This is really to help bolster a student's overall training in the arts before they actually declare their major. At PNCA, students declare their major in their sophomore year. So they have 3 years at PNCA where they're really dedicating themselves to their major of focus. We are an interdisciplinary art school, meaning that students are encouraged to work with a lot of different mediums and materials across majors as well. But these are all the classes that students would take in their foundation year. And you can see that the vast majority are actually in studio art. And I'm going to talk about the difference between a BA versus a BFA degree. Now, I use this screen a lot with students and families when I'm talking about whether or not they want to pursue a Bachelor's of Fine Art versus a Bachelor's of Art. So at PNCA, we provide a 4-year degree. It's a Bachelor's of Fine Art. And the big difference is how you spend your time. So 60 to 75% of a student's courses are going to be geared towards studio art classes. So they're going to be geared towards their major or the studio art electives. And then only about 25 to 35% are going to be liberal arts courses. It's the reverse for a student who is pursuing an art major at a university, liberal arts college, or state school. So when talking to students about whether or not they want to go to art school or if they want to pursue a career in the arts, I generally like to talk to students about how they want to be spending their time in college, because if they want to pursue a BFA or go to art school, the predominant focus is going to be on their major, their studio art major. So what is the art school experience? I'm going to be talking a little bit about that as it, of course, relates to portfolio building. But art school, as you saw in the previous slide, is really about the time that you are spending in your major of focus and gaining all of these skills. So this is the role of art school. If a student is choosing to pursue arts and they're interested in art school as well, one of the main key aspects that they'll be focusing on, one of the reasons to go to art school, is about developing those skills, both technical and conceptual. Thinking critically is, of course, across all majors. In art school, it's really emphasized by the fact that we do critique in every single studio session. So students are going to get very comfortable talking about their work with their peers. That leads me to collaborating amongst creatives. Art school is all about helping students together function as a team in the arts. Unfortunately, sometimes we think that the arts are a solo sport, but they're definitely a team sport. And at PNCA, we really have students work together. There are some group projects. We help them understand each other's majors as well. Network and connecting students to professional contacts and opportunities might be one of the most important reasons that a student is going to pursue art school. It's not just the city where the student is living, but it's also what kind of opportunities at the school that are provided to the student to really excel in the arts. That includes internships, networking with their professors, with outside art contacts, professional contacts, and arts organizations. And then, of course, building a portfolio. So big emphasis before you graduate from a 4-year Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree. You're actually going to create a portfolio during your time in art school. When you exit school, you use that to represent yourself for careers and positions, or your next steps if you want to pursue an MFA, for example. So I mentioned ACAD earlier. I want to define what this definition is. So ACAD stands for the Association of Independent Colleges of Art and Design. It's a nonprofit consortium of the leading arts and design schools in the US and Canada. So there's about 39 total. So we are actually a nationally recognized ACAD art school. And again, we're one of the oldest on the West Coast. Something that's really fun to point out to students is the ACAD exchange program. So PNCA is actually a part of this program. There's about 20 schools. So through that program, full-time students who are attending one of those 20 participating ACAD schools, they're going to have a unique opportunity to attend another ACAD school for 1 semester at no additional cost or loss of credit. I'll send these links at the end of this presentation to everyone, but the main thing I want to point out about the ACAD exchange program is that it's a great way for a student that may want to go to an art school that's close to home, but they have an interest in maybe going across the country for a semester to gain new skills, make new friends, and make new professional contacts. So they have that opportunity through this exchange program. I always like to emphasize the skills that we learn within art. One of them is the ability to collaborate effectively. I talked about that a little bit earlier, but really this is a skill within artists that they are pretty exceptional at. If you can imagine an art director, for example, they have to work with all aspects of a creative team. Time management, students who pursue a career in the arts have exceptional time management skills. If they don't have them yet, when they go into a program, they will learn them. If you can imagine college life for an art student, it's 5 classes every semester at PNCA, for example. Students are learning how to balance 3 studio classes and 2 liberal arts courses. Each class that they have has a certain number of hours for projects. And for art school, it's very project-based. Creative problem solving, of course. Students are learning to really think outside of the box before they go back to the box, right? They are really thinking about all the interconnecting ideas to solve a problem. Students are learning from critique. This is a wonderful life skill that they build. Learning how to receive feedback from others about your work and then give feedback to others about their work. Of course, being receptive and adaptable, that's a great skill that students learn within the arts because the arts are not a linear path. And then resilience. Artists are great with change. We actually really thrive in that. Now, I really like to define, at least in a personal way for me, why I think art matters. I think it's important to talk about why art is so crucial to us, not just in school for what we learn, but really in terms of what this provides to humanity. And I like to boil it down for myself to art helps us understand why we matter. And I've talked to a lot of parents and families about this as well. So perhaps it's a book that you keep coming back to, a painting that changed your perspective, or a performance that moved you deeply and you still remember, that moment of awe. Art matters because we do, and we create the world that we want to live in. So I hope that resonates with everyone. Switching over to numbers now, let's talk about what art provides in terms of monetary gain for your students. So the arts are a thriving and lucrative career choice. Contemporary artists are involved in many industries and not just the arts. Actually, almost everything that we interact with in our daily life was created by an artist or a designer. The arts also equal 4.6% of the total GDP. That equates to 1.1 trillion in revenue. A really great resource that I'll be linking later called snaparts.org has some wonderful data about this through an alumni arts survey. So within one of their recent surveys, about 72% had jobs in their area within 4 months of graduation. It's a great number. 82% had jobs directly related to their major that they studied within art. 16% started their own company. We have a lot of freelance and entrepreneurs at PNCA. 90% reported critical thinking and creative problem solving that was used in their daily work. 70% currently work within the creative fields. 85% said they would recommend this pathway. And then I love this statistic of all of them. 80% love their work. Really, in my opinion, you can't put a price tag on that. But it's really great to see that there's a lot of satisfaction for students that go on to pursue art. Most art schools and art programs should have either career services that assist students particularly into the arts. The arts are a very different pathway. So at PNCA, we have an Office of Career Design. These are all of the workshops that we provide, all of the different resources for students. So you can see these are very specific to someone pursuing a career in the arts. Everything from portrait sessions to having your headshot professionally done to building a professional artist's CV and resume. These are the career paths that I often see artists going down, that we see our graduates pursue. And then across the arts, we generally see students pursuing a lot of these different specialties and areas that you can see. And this is a short list of the many career opportunities and titles that students can go on to hold. Now, I want to go over what we call the art school application checklist. So what does your student need to provide in order to apply to art school or an arts program at a college? So of course, the application. And I can't stress this enough. Every application is different. Every requirement is different. So students should not submit the same artwork across every single school that they're interested in pursuing. I know that sounds like a lot of work. There could be some crossover, but it's really important for students to read through each application carefully and understand that no two schools are alike. Of course, schools are going to be asking for a high school transcript or GED or college transcripts if applicable. For art schools, it's about half and half. Some ask for official and some ask for unofficial for the purposes of reviewing a student's application. At PNCA, we ask for official transcripts. And then a personal or artist statement. So this is very different from a college essay. For example, on the Common App, there'll be different prompts for a student to fill out for their essay. When a student is applying to art school or an arts college, they're generally asked to write an artist statement, and I'll be going over that a little bit later in the presentation and some tips and tricks. Letters of recommendation are often optional, as well as test scores are often optional for art schools. The part that I have highlighted down here is auditions or portfolio reviews. That is the key component for a student that's interested in pursuing art. Now, most art schools, pretty much all of them, are going to require a portfolio or an audition, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit. This is usually submitted for a visual portfolio digitally. So I'm going to go over some portfolio prep tips now. So how would you guide your student through the process of actually creating a successful portfolio for art school, and also what to avoid submitting? So this is what I believe makes a strong portfolio. This is what PNCA focuses on, but I believe that these aspects, all art schools are really paying close attention to with your students. The first, and in my opinion, most important, is the student's creative voice. So what does that actually mean? This is the student's personal style. This is their vision. This is their original work. The portfolio can be a whole story that a student is telling about themselves, their work, their journey through the arts. We also want to have an emphasis on technical skill. Every single piece that a student submits in an art portfolio needs to be their best work, not only in terms of original ideas and conceptual content, but also in terms of the medium that they used: painting, drawing, video, sound. It needs to highlight their best skill in those areas. This also needs to be recent work. So this has to be, but usually no older than 2 years. Most schools follow that. They want to see the work that a student has made within the last couple years. It's going to be more true to the student's vision. Clear documentation. At the end of the day, the portfolio is a series of images that are being reviewed. So the documentation, having them clear, is really important. And then concise descriptions. Students do need to have a title and a short description about each piece that they upload. A lot of schools ask for observational drawings. This is actually really common amongst art schools. And it can vary in the range and the amount. Some schools ask for 1, 3, 5. There are some schools where they want your portfolio to predominantly be observational drawings. So an observational drawing is a drawing that a student has done and observed from life. So something that's right in front of them versus a photograph. Students at PNCA have about 3 observational drawings they need to fulfill and require. We ask that they can draw a person, place, or thing from life using graphite, ink, or charcoal. You can see 3 examples here. We also accept traditional mediums like colored pencil, pastel, and paint, as long as drawing was really the emphasis and really the student observing something from life. So I'm going to go over some examples of what students might typically include in specific areas of interest for a portfolio. So for example, if you have a student that is a studio artist with an emphasis on painting and drawing, the most important tip that I can give is that your student has variety within their portfolio when it comes to painting and drawing. So it's not just the same portrait over and over and over again. Like the image you can see in the middle, really well executed. I love that the students' kind of creative styles coming through, right? It's a bit more illustrative. We have a blank background on this piece. That's okay because really we're being drawn into the details and the feature of the face, the different styles of shading that they used with colored pencil. But if a student submitted a portfolio that was 10 images of this kind of portrait, maybe, a different subject matter over and over and over again, that wouldn't really show that the student has a breadth or a range of skill. So I generally will advise students that are interested in pursuing painting and drawing to show, figurative, abstract, landscape, maybe some close-ups, maybe some environmental images, and you can see there's a wide variety here. We are really interested in interdisciplinary work at PNCA. So that means work that was done within multiple mediums. So instead of just a painting, perhaps there is fabric woven into the painting. Perhaps there is cyanotype or photography layered on top of that image. Each of these images that you're looking at, these works of art, have multiple aspects to them. Collage work is also great to show in your portfolio, as long as the student is really thinking about some of those fundamental design concepts as well. This shows that a student is interested in creative risk. That's another emphasis for their portfolio, that they are willing to take a leap and try something different. For sculptural and 3D works, we generally recommend that a student takes multiple angles and combines it into one image. So you can see these 4 different pieces, how each student has taken multiple shots and angles and then combined that into one image submission. And this is because you're taking something that normally exists in 3D space, and we are collapsing it into 2D space, into an image. So I often tell students to think about photographing their sculpture as if I was walking around the piece in real life, in real time. For your students that do a lot of illustration and digitally focused work, this is going to go back to range. So it's a really good idea for them to show not just character concepts. A lot of students really want to show their original characters, character turnarounds, expression sheets, but it's important that they also consider the other elements of good storytelling. So we want to have some background design. Maybe we want to have some assets and layouts. You can see that here with the Benny's Bagels illustration that the student made for a shop that they were designing based on a story that they are putting together. You can also have fully detailed and fully realized finished illustrative pieces that stand alone on their own and are not used specifically for what's called visual development. In terms of photography, I tend to encourage students to consider having, again, a range of breadth and works in photography, but to focus on certain areas of emphasis. This could be documentary style photography. It could be narrative driven. It could be more abstract, expressive, or it could simply be about the contrast of color, shape, form, space, time. All of those fundamental design concepts really come through in photography. And so your students, again, just want to have some good range within that work. Most art schools are interested in concept-based work or work that's done in your sketchbook. Again, your student has got to read through the application requirements because some schools want to see predominantly concept and sketch work, while others really want you to limit that. At PNCA, we actually like to see this work as long as it's fully finished. So what we mean by that, and you can see these examples here, is that the student is considering the whole page. They're really showing their full design process. They're really leading us into their internal thinking about the work that they make. In terms of documentation, I want to talk about some tips and tricks. All right. So this first image is really important for students to understand why documenting their work is crucial for their portfolio. So something called distortion can easily happen if a student is angling their camera on the side or their phone, and they're not paying attention to how the image is coming out. So we definitely want our images to look like that portrait. So really, really clean, straight on documentation with the camera or phone. And then any distracting edges have been cropped out. So you can see in this painting of the deer, there's a lot of issues going on. There's too strong of a lighting source that's creating a cast shadow. It's shot at an angle. And then finally, the wall is actually considered quite a distraction, right? We really can't see the full piece in all of its detail. So here's another example. Cropping is really important. And these examples that I'm going to go over, the reason they matter so much for your students has to do with scholarship. So most art schools have merit-based scholarships with a heavy emphasis on your portfolio. So students really want to take the time and the craft and the care into doing this. So often when I talk to students about cropping, I'll use the image here of the bowl and ask them what they think about this image and whether or not do they know whose piece is whose? Do they know which piece we're supposed to be focusing on? And that helps them understand that when they're showcasing their work, they really don't want to have anything distracting in the background. That image of the bowl actually could have been successful for the student had they just cleared the other materials from the background and then focused their lens in a little more so that the edge of that bowl in the front is a little more clear. This seems really picky, but this is exactly what reviewers are looking at when they are taking a look at your students' portfolios for application. We usually recommend that students will scan 2D work. It's very important if they've done any traditional black and white or colored film, any flat work, drawings, colored pencil, anything that's 2D. If they can scan it, it's going to have the best resolution. And it's a lot easier to scan an image and then crop it digitally than try to figure out how to document flat work like this. 3D details are also really important for students. So there's only so many images that a student can upload for their application. Again, each application has different requirements. For PNCA, it's 10 to 15. Some art schools, it can be over 20 images that a student needs to submit. When students are thinking about showing multiple angles of one image, similar to that 3D slide that I showed you, it's good for them to consider doing some zoom in shots of detail work. For example, this glass piece that a student made is beautiful. It's actually kind of hard to tell what the piece is from the clean shot that the student took, but with these close-up images, they're able to see more nuanced detail. And again, that helps the reviewer of the student's application for their portfolio understand all the technical skill that went into this work. And they combined that into one image, which is really smart. Here's what to avoid. Definitely never photograph work on a carpet or a distracting textured surface. That's not a part of the piece itself. And I would argue that most are not. Also, for the shirt that we're looking at in the middle here, it would have been a good idea for the student to have ironed that. This is a screen print, so we're not really able to see that detail very well. Students also want to make sure they're lighting their work properly. They don't want to have their work ever just on the ground. And you can see from these examples, the problem here is that there's what we call a lack of commitment to understanding how to photograph or how to present their work. And I will preface this with students do not need fancy equipment to document their work. Most of our students, for example, photograph their work with their phone, and it looks great. And we teach a lot of workshops and info sessions for students on how to do this with things that you have at your house. In terms of how students should be thinking about showing their work through titles, material, they definitely need to be giving context. It's very important. Most schools allow students to title their work when they upload it, include the medium. So it could be painting, collage, photography, digital art. They just want to say what the piece is. Students can expand on that technique or the program that they used. For an example, a student might have used Procreate or acrylic on canvas or charcoal on paper. Students want to include dimensions if they are applicable. Students don't need to do that usually for digital-based work. And then finally, this is the most important part. It's essential that a student describes the process or concept in 1 to 3 succinct sentences. So an example of that could be, this self-portrait is part of a larger series exploring themes of childhood memories. This is helping your student also practice talking about their work and understanding the whole labeling that goes within the work that they're submitting. So these are also good professional skills for them to engage in. In regards to what makes a strong artist statement, at PNCA, this is what we're looking for students to touch upon, these 4 concepts, usually in 4 paragraphs. We have 250 to 500 word limit. So first and foremost, we believe that students should just introduce themselves. Who are they? They could talk about their background, how they became an artist, what kind of work do they make? This is really where students can start talking about their interests in their work, the type of materials that they use. What is your work about? This is the hardest part of an artist statement. And again, we run workshops on this, but some students will really know what kind of themes they're working with, especially students who are in AP. You know, they're guided to develop a theme. And some students aren't really sure what this means. So usually I recommend that students take a look at the pieces that they're interested in submitting and start to see if they can find any common ground that they notice. Perhaps a student realizes that the majority of their portfolio has nature themes. Maybe each piece has flowers throughout. Maybe that's something that interests them. That's when we start asking them to dig a little deeper about what they think that might mean for them. And then what are the students' goals? And this can be their general art goals, their career goals, what they would like to pursue at PNCA. We generally ask students to speak a little more broadly about their concepts, themes, and their process. We want to hear about their interests and their concerns and how that shapes the art that they make. again, as well as their goals and ambitions as a student at PNCA. So that's kind of summarizing that a little bit more. Some tips that I give students are to research artists who inspire them and read their artist biographies, read their artist statements. And often a lot of their heroes in the arts have done interviews. So they should read through those and read how they talk about their work. You can glean a lot of inspiration from that. So I'm going to shift a little bit into performing arts and music because the predominant aspect of a portfolio for this is actually the audition. So these are some things that students want to be thinking about if they're interested in pursuing performing arts or music. And performing arts can also include dance, it could be theater, musical theater, it could be directing. There's a lot within that. Generally, students need to have a headshot. So they'll want to get that professionally done. An artistic resume is different from an artist CV. It usually is going to talk about maybe some work that they've already done. For your students, it could be maybe they're involved in technical theater at their school, or they've been in a play, or they've done some dance in their community. Letter of recommendations are often required for this as well. Students also want to prepare pieces based on, again, each school's individual requirements. This is really particular for performing arts. So to talk a little bit more about that, in regards to musical theater, generally students are going to submit 1, maybe 2 monologues and 2 contrasting songs. Some musical theater will also ask for a dance audition as well, since musical theater is involving movement. In terms of theater, it's usually 2 contrasting monologues. I put a comment there that some schools will ask for Shakespeare and then a contemporary monologue, right? So that they can really see the contrast between those 2. In regards to music, it's usually 2 to 3 pieces of the primary instrument. There could be some ear theory training involved, so they might do sight reading live. Some schools are going to ask for original compositions. And I want to use 2 schools right now in juxtaposition to give you an example. If a student is applying to Berklee College of Music in Boston versus the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, those are 2 very different music cultures. Those are 2 very different approaches to the application. And then if a student is pursuing dance, if it's ballet, it will usually be bar work and then center work, and then modern contemporary combo, so they could do a combination of all of that. It could be improvisation as well. Sometimes it's jazz if there's a focus on that in the program, or a entirely solo submission. So as you can see, there's a lot of range here. But these are some things that students want to think about in terms of how they're going to stand out. So you really want to understand the program requirements again. Students need to prepare their pieces. So they want to prepare their pieces with their instructor. They want to practice as much as possible. And practice, if they can, I would recommend in front of audiences. It could even be peers. This sounds scary, but when you constantly practice and prepare pieces on your own, it feels different when you give them in front of a small audience. And it's good to practice that. In terms of performance etiquette, I want to talk about something called slating, or to slate. It's not the CRM that some of us might be familiar with. Slating is the process of you introducing yourself, the piece that you're going to give, and then you take a pause, and then you begin. This is quite common for performance or introducing a piece that you're about to do. Most students are not going to step on stage or in front of the audition and just immediately go into their piece. They need to sort of set the stage for that. Students also want to remember to dress appropriately for performances, especially if this is something that's going to be in person for an audition. Generally, it is, professional, semi-business attire, obviously something they need to move in, Some schools believe in sort of the all-black aesthetic for their garments. Another thing to think about, though, is making sure that a student is not wearing garments that make a lot of sound or are distracting from the auditioners actually watching and reviewing the student and paying attention to the monologues and the movements. In terms of the audition, something your student will need to look at for the application requirements are, is this a recording that I'm submitting, or is it a live audition, a live performance? Some schools will not have you do a live audition. They'll have you send in a recording. Generally for that, we would recommend that students find like a theater space to do that, space where they can really move and give that performance as if it was in person. Students need to pay attention to deadlines for different auditions that they might be going to, because the timing for this can vary widely. Also, it's important to leverage alumni and current student contacts and insights from the different programs that they're interested in. You know, research who graduated from this school, what are they doing now? Informational interviews are something that I encourage students at all stages of an application to engage in. Again, look for your heroes, your inspiration in the arts, send them an email. You'll be surprised. They'd love to talk to you about how they got to where they are. So I'm going to quickly review some stories from our alumni. Hopefully this will be inspiring for you to see how students work across all sectors of the arts. And this is ranging from students who graduated, you know, close to 20 plus years ago to students who graduated last year. So Michael Curry, I always like to talk about him because he's amazing. He is a puppetry and set designer for Walt Disney, Wynn Resorts, the Met Opera, Cirque du Soleil. He's done Olympic and Super Bowl ceremonies. He also has his own company. These are some of his pieces that he's done. It's a pretty incredible student. He graduated from PNCA in sculpture. Daniela Repes was one of our Princess Grace Award winners in 2019. They got their BFA in Intermedia in 2008, and they've had their work shown all over the world. And they are currently a cinematographer for Wynn Media Productions. Tabor Robach, who graduated from our General Fine Arts degree in 2010, is a designer for Nike, T-Mobile, represented by Team Gallery. They've shown and been collected by major museums all over the United States as well as abroad. Daniel, so I always love to point out the student because they created the Progress Pride flag, and it's the first pride flag flown permanently on federal lands, part of the Stonewall National Monument. It's a pretty awesome accomplishment from this student. They graduated with their BFA in 2014. Damien graduated from Intermedia in 2014 with their BFA, and they have shown throughout a number of really important exhibitions, including the Whitney Biennial in 2024. They're the founder of RISE, the Radical Indigenous Survivance and Empowerment. They've also had a ton of shows and are an author. Molly Mendoza is currently a professor at PNCA. They're the illustrator of many books, including a Caldecott winner, and they've also done a ton of murals around town. Sage Cortez graduated from sculpture, BFA in 2017. Sage runs her own company called Hand and Fire. It's extremely successful. So she's been running this company for a really long time now and makes a full-time living as a ceramics and lifestyle artist. Leua was just named one of the 15 Native American women artists to know by Art News. So they got their painting BFA and they minored in art and ecology in 2018. They've been a part of tons of exhibitions all over the United States, including the Portland Art Museum. Angelica was a printmaking BFA in 2019. She's had a wide range of careers working for Google. She's also done things for Good Times. She's been involved in UX design, UI. She's done gallery exhibition work. and of course has shown work all throughout the United States. Audrey is currently a junior designer at Smith Tea Maker. She graduated from graphic design in 2023. She also had work as a brand designer and did her internship at Industry and Laundry Studio. And then Sade, who recently graduated last year with a painting BFA, has already shown in multiple galleries and arts organizations, including the Portland Art Museum. Sade is a prolific painter. She was also one of our Equity Scholarship recipients and the Art of Sparkling Argyle Winery Scholarship. So in terms of what you can provide to your students, these are my last few slides that I want to go through. And if you're wanting to guide your students about choosing the right art school, we generally talk to students about location. So that has to do with career aspects as well, the student to faculty ratio, the facilities that are in the school. Is there a foundation year or a first year experience? For some students, that's really crucial for them instead of launching straight into their major. What is the curriculum like? Are there career services? What is the total student support at your school? What kind of networking opportunities exist? And is there alumni support following graduation? These are great resources that are financially based for art students specifically. So most schools have merit-based scholarships, again, based on your audition or your visual arts portfolio. I generally recommend students to get in touch with the National Art Honor Society or join that as well. Of course, we have all of these recommendations we always are talking to students about. Fill out your FAFSA, see if you qualify for an FSEOG grant, the OSAC, the ORSA. For Oregon only, there's also the Oregon Opportunity Grant. And then regionally for us here located in Oregon is the Regional Arts and Culture Council, RAC, has a lot of grant opportunities as well. For students that are transferring to an ACAD art school, this could be through their associates or through their general studies. We have tons of transfer agreements with community colleges all across Oregon, Washington, and California. The studio art credits are what they'll want to pay attention to, as well as those BFA requirements for the school. Again, we have transfer agreements, and then students want to look at the transfer student population for a school that they might be transferring into. It's really great for students to have enough of that balance and the diversity of different students' perspectives, lived experiences within a school. And I know that we are running short on time, so I am going to stop there.
Hi.
And open it up for questions.
Yeah, we don't actually have any yet, but maybe while people are thinking about questions, I just wanted to say, just looking at those slides, blown away by just what you are a part of every day. Like, you get to see this beautiful art. I'm sure that fills your cup every day, just seeing this talent. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. I learned quite a bit. I loved the part, particularly about taking the pictures of their work and cropping advice. I thought that was super helpful. Thank you for that. And I do want to mention, sorry to interrupt you. Albert Rubio is also joining us today, and he's with Cornish. And so he offered in the chat any help with it. Hey, there he is. Hey, Albert. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so he's offered for any of the counselors that would like some support with performing arts applications and auditions. So Albert, we're going to add that to, I misspoke or mistyped when I said it was going to be in the email. It's going to be in our Counselor One-on-One portal. Both of your contact information will be part of that. So thank you. Oh man, I just appreciate both of you.
Awesome. Thanks for that resource, Albert. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Happy to be of support.
Yeah, so appreciate that. Thank you for joining us today. And then Sharon was great. She shared, shared some great links for us as far as online portfolio support. So appreciate that. And then lots of comments about learning a lot. I know I particularly, like I mentioned, have learned quite a bit. So I appreciate this.
Yeah, those resources Sharon's shared are great because Some schools will also use Slideroom, for example, for the Common App, some art schools, and then others won't use Slideroom. Like we have Slate integration. So again, students really just need to read through those requirements really carefully and go step by step. I know it's a lot of work for students when they're trying to, figure out which schools they want to go to. But again, if they start thinking about everything that's involved in this process now, it's going to make it a lot easier as they narrow down their choices.
Maybe while they're still thinking, I did have like one piece of advice I was hoping from you. A few years ago, I attended like an educators conference where there was someone from an industry that was speaking to us, and this person was a local company that works with Pixar. And so they employed a lot of artists and illustrators. And he had mentioned that in their portfolio review, they'd like to see where this person started with their art versus where they are today. Do you ever see that in any industries where they do like to see like your ability to adapt and become creative, even more creative as you, I don't know. Am I misremembering maybe?
Oh, no, not at all. Some will ask for that. Some art schools have wanted to see a student's progression. Sometimes though we'll see this in the way that a student shows their work through sketchbook or concept or kind of ideation work is what we'll call it in their sketch pieces. That can give a little bit of an insight into how a student comes to create work. Again, some applications focus highly on that, on wanting to see more conceptually driven, like, concept visual development based work. And then other applications and other art schools want to see what we call like fully finished, fully realized pieces. Like they don't want to see the concepts behind it, like all of the work that it kind of took to make the piece. They just want to see the finished piece. So it'll really depend on that. And that's a good thing for a student to think about in regards to the kind of artist that they are too. Maybe a good fit for them for an art school would be a place where there's a lot of emphasis on all of the concept work that it takes to get to a completed piece. It just really depends on the student. I mean, I truly believe in like right fit, right, for a student pursuing an art degree. And obviously there's so much that goes into that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And then I think, I apologize if you shared this, but does PNCA do portfolio reviews at high schools? Maybe when they have, did I miss this? I'm sorry. Like if there's an AP art class, you'd be willing to come in and give some advice to the students or?
Oh yeah. So I didn't get to this part of my presentation because I love getting into all the nitty gritty with this. But we go to art classrooms all over the United States, both for beginning all the way to AP and advanced art. And we do portfolio reviews. So we do them one-on-one with students. We give presentations about portfolios and how to put together their work. We give all of that advice for them. And then we also do info sessions that we run virtually. We do on-campus workshops for students, for prospective students. They can come to our school. We run these once a month in the fall and then again in the spring. They can actually come onto campus, get a tour, have free dinner, and then take a class with one of our professors in one of our studios. It's a really great way for students to get a sense of what art school might be like for them. And of course, we're a part of the National Portfolio Day Association. We host the NPD every year here at our school in Portland. We'll be hosting again on Saturday, November 1st of this year. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. There is a question from Lily, specific to you, Justine. Know that PNCA still has applications open the fall. When does that close? Is it rolling or is it until all spots are filled?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're currently doing rolling applications, but we close all applications on July 15th for the incoming fall. And then we'll open new applications again on August 1st. And so that'll be for spring 2026 and fall 2026. So we're on the semester system.
Great. Thanks for asking that, Lily. Doesn't look like we have any more questions, and we're pretty much at the top of the hour. So thanks for your contact information, and also you, Albert. And I'm sure if anyone has any questions, they can reach out. Is that all right if they reach out to you directly?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, awesome. And same with you, Justine. So thank you guys for your time. I learned so much. Yeah, and I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and we'll see you in the fall when we start the CC101 webinars all over again. So thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.